It's interesting to compare and contrast. Sylvia Earle was just talking about the deep abyssal depths of the oceans, which are, I think over in the Marianas Trench, it goes down about 7 miles, if I'm not mistaken, or at any rate, and then to go up to the top of Everest. It's a pretty interesting compare and contrast. So I want to introduce the panel, and specifically Jenna Kelly, who worked with us here for 3 years at AREDAY, and now is a student of divinity at the Yale School in Connecticut, and also led a team, myself included, by the way, up Mount Kilimanjaro 2 years ago. And one of our missions was to take a close hand look at the receding glaciers there. So, Jenna?
This panel, we're going to focus on climate change and the effects that they've seen in the mountain regions. But we're also going to talk about the personal stories and their inspiration behind why they climb these mountains. Laura, what do you see as the challenge trying to break into a male-dominated sport? Is this a sport for everyone?
Definitely a sport for everyone at every age. And actually, I have a question for you as moderator. I know that you just led a group of women and Chip up Kilimanjaro. Tell me, what was that? You have more experience in that male-dominated female fundraising conservation point of view. What do you think?
In 2012, yes, we had 14 women and Chip. And we had one of the youngest American girls to summit Mount Kilimanjaro, Taylor Justice. I think she might be in the room. And we had all ages up to 65, but it was to focus on women's empowerment and to put a spotlight on key conservation issues like the poaching of the endangered rhino and African elephant. So it was just an incredible experience, and what everyone took away, they came back to their communities and taught their communities about conservation, but really were just an inspiration. And many people that went on the climb are still working on conservation issues now and have kind of carved paths in that direction. So
that's great.
I'm like you, though. I'm just starting in this. So.
Yeah, and it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman.
Well,
it's
Lynn
us.
Lynn Hill is one of the strongest female climbers, so she's take it at that. So I think, yeah, it's a great sport that it's not. We can compete on the same thing, and teams with expeditions with women are a lot more enjoyable than just men.
Well, and you hit it on the head. I mean, I don't even consider it a sport. It's a very specific kind of recreation because you can't compete against Mother Nature. You go out there and you just do the best that you can, and sometimes you're successful, sometimes you're not, but you're guaranteed, if you have the right attitude, to always have a great adventure. And it's, there are some women out there that are, Lynn Hill is, she's about as good as it gets.
Laura, I kind of want to end with something that we talked about, again, this process that you feel while mountaineering, starting with the feeling of awe, moving towards humility, gratitude, and then coming away with this commitment to act. So talk to us again about that, and I think you have a couple more photos to show us.
I think, actually, I showed this. But, for me, it's, I love the quote by Sir Edmund Hillary. It's not the mountain we conquer, but ourselves. And for me, in a very strong way, that's a metaphor for what this sport has become in my life. It's, when you're standing there and you're in a place and you're not living right in that moment, that next moment could be your life. It's that, if I'm not walking across this and totally focused right where I am, then I might not get the next chance to focus on that next moment. And I think it brings you in and it hones you into living more in the present. And there's something I think that happens to us. It's like an emptying of ourselves. When you get to the top and you've just been breathing hard hour after hour after hour, it's like a spending. You're up there and you've given so much of your breath to have the honor of standing in that space. And while you're standing there, I think the first feeling I always have is a sense of such incredible awe that the views, the things that I get to see, and that really it's out of my own commitment to training and sacrifice of my time, my energy, of learning how to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. Just be able to stand up there in that space is very powerful. And when you're standing in that space and you realize that you're just such a small part of something so huge and vast, but yet you as a human have the power to change for the good or the bad, that very thing that you're sitting there being a part of, that it's in your hands of what that could possibly look like, or that generations to come will be able to stand and look at that space or stand where you are. It's humbling. And for me, I've always been somebody that cared about the environment, always tried to recycle, do the right things, turn off the lights, this and that. But really, for me, the biggest thing climbing's done, it's been my call to action. And it's why we put our foundation's funds more into environment than we ever have. Because the feeling of standing up there and knowing what we have been entrusted with is very powerful and important. And I think for me, it's a call to action with our kids. They're always, they're right here. They're right here. But the connection to the earth, it's kinesthetic. And when you stand up there and you experience whatever that mountain might be for you, when you're standing there, that's where you experience and know that that we're stewards of this planet, that we're here. So when I was climbing, to close, when I was climbing Kilimanjaro some years ago, about 4 years ago, I was just walking. I think I was around 15,000 feet, just walking along, and it's like, I should do something called What is Your Mountain? It just popped in my head, and I'd been dealing, I love working with at-risk youth, and have been involved with experiential learning programs with inner city kids for years. And so I went down and I have the URL and programs. In fact, next year we're going to have our first round of kids, and it's going to be very much about what is the mountain that you tackle within yourself, and the metaphor of the mountain, and tie into that they are responsible and stewards of this planet, so that they can really kinesthetically experience that victory of standing on top of something that they accomplished, and what that looks like within their own hearts. And I think that's what the mountains mean to me more than anything, the climbing.
That's wonderful. Thank you. We have just a few minutes, but I'd like to go down the line and ask Conrad, what's your next project? And Laura and Mike too. So tell us what's next for you.
Oh. There's climbing projects, there's life projects, family projects, all those things. A couple more climbing trips, but just being an advocate for the climate, and so get fit, climb for the next 10 years, have fun with that. But just on your observation of the climbing, it's really great, Laura, to hear that. And I think one of the things that, because we are in a risky place, in that bad things can happen, we are in a heightened sense of awareness, and you're hyper tuned into and so many people try to find that either by running 100 miles, or they do it chemically, or they do it spiritually, or whatever. And when you find that, then you have as you point, you all of a sudden you have this appreciation for the cosmos. You're on this top of a mountain, and the sky's up there, and there's kind of all comes together.
Amazing.
And I think that's really and if we can get more people outside, they'll care about the environment, they're healthier, prescribing outdoor exercise for obesity is something that's taking place now. So the more that we can build that in there, and the more that we get outside, the more it'll be easier to understand that thing. And that's why there's a low thing at Mr. Boehner there, but he doesn't really get outdoors. He lives on the golf course, and if you got out there and you got the DTs in your hands and they were freezing, or you got so hot that you had to find shade, and you suffered rather than everything being fine.
It's a very practical aspect of life that it's hard to communicate that with people, and people, until they get out there, it can be a hard practicality for them to grab onto. But the outdoor, if you're not if you're spending all your time inside, I mean, you're not going to care as much about the environment, that's for sure.
That's true. We care about what we love. And Mike, you're trying to set a new record, skiing above 7.
Oh, we're just dumb. I mean, we've been beating ourselves up for 3 years trying to climb from above 7,000 meters in the winter. And so we've spent the last 3 Januaries in northwestern China in 100-mile-an-hour winds and 100 below temps, trying to figure it out. And we think we've got it figured out. So we'll try and finish it. I'll finish it before I leave this place. That's for sure.
Well, we'll be following you.
Yeah.
And Laura, you're getting ready to head off in just a couple weeks too.
I am. I'm so excited. It's the Snowman Trek, and it's actually not climbing, it's trekking, but it's 216 miles in 27 days, 11 mountain passes, so we'll be a couple weeks between 13 and 18.5. It's called the Snowman Trek, and it's in Bhutan and Tibet. What's really amazing is that we get to visit indigenous people that only see the outside world 3 months a year because the passes are closed. So to be able to know that there might be that little child that I'm the first person from outside of his village he ever remembers seeing, or she remembers seeing, I think is a rarity in this small planet. So I'm very excited.
Well, thank you, each and every one of you, for giving your insight and wisdom. This has been such a great panel, and you've really taught us that the mountains do teach us, and it's a place to come back to and show that we're all connected. It's all interconnected. As Ted Turner said, when we lose the environment, we lose everything. So I'd like to give our panelists a round of applause.